vulnerability is synonymous with weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And the most common argument I get back on that is, well, first responders, soldiers, whatever, people going to battle, they're vulnerable. No, they're not. That's not vulnerability. Vulnerability is being open to harm.
You're listening to the premier podcast for men who want to not only be better with women, but want to be better men in general. This is the Come On Man podcast. And here's your host, Paul Bauer.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another week of Come On Man. If you haven't done so already, please like, fave, subscribe, hit those notifications. If you are listening on your favorite audio platform of choice, please give us a 5-star review and actually take the time to write out why you like the show. Here's another 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Kian Rogers writes, "Not all about dating and women. Longtime listener here. It's amazing how much Paul has grown since this podcast first came out, since his train wreck episode, which was hilarious, to his current relationship with Marine Corps chick." Oh man, that's an old one. Man, yeah, that one was that was from last year. You guys need to get on this, man. I'm reading like old reviews here. It's clear that Paul is internalizing this information. Well done. Well, that's true. Thanks, Kian. Man. Yeah, that's an old one. You guys, I need some new ones, guys. New 5-star reviews. Hook it up. If you are watching on YouTube, please drop a comment and hit that like button. But drop a comment. You can leave an emoji, whatever. It helps boost us in the algorithms. All right. Before I go further, I want to give a shout out to the Patreon, patreon.com/comeonmanpod. Right now there's 5 tiers available, but in January, I'm going to consolidate to 3 tiers. And the tier 1 and 2, the prices are going up. Tier 3, the price is staying the same, but you'll be limited to 1 call per month as opposed to 2 calls per month now. So if you want the current options and the current benefits, current prices, sign up now and select the annual option to lock in those prices. And then when you select the annual option, you also save 15% off the normal cost of it. But with tier 2, you basically get unlimited tech support from me. So let's say you're on a dating app, you get stuck on a conversation, some chick hits you up with some kind of shit test or whatever, you don't know how to respond, man, just send me a screenshot or whatever, or just tell me what's going on, man. I'll reply back as soon as I can and tell you what to say, tell you how to navigate those waters, basically training wheels until you get good at it yourself and you know what you're doing, and then you don't need to do it anymore. Perfect. Like I want you guys to get to a place where you don't need to be on the Patreon anymore unless you just want to help support the show. If you do just want to support the show, tier 1 is going to be your place to go for that. It's only $10 a month. And then I will put you in the beer credits at the end of each episode on YouTube. So anyways, check it out. Patreon.com/comeonmanpod. Also, if you haven't done so already, sign up for the email list. That's list.comeonmanpod.com, and you will get these free stickers free of charge. I will mail them out to you. I just am trying to protect myself from like an Andrew Tate type situation where I get deplatformed and I have no way to contact my normal subscribers. So if you get on the email list, I'm not spamming you. I'm not sending out a bunch of sales solicitation nonsense or whatever. It's literally right now just to be able to contact you in case I ever get kicked off of like TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or whatever. I can send out an email blast and say, hey guys, I got kicked off. This is my new account, or, follow me here, whatever. I'm just trying to hedge that problem because people don't like content for men out there for whatever reason. All right. Okay, guys, joining me this week is a really cool cat. He goes by Graybeard Actual on TikTok and Instagram. There's another Graybeard Actual out there. So it could get confusing, but when you see this guy and you hear him talk, you've probably seen him on TikTok. He makes very compelling videos. You'll know who I'm talking about. But his real name is Ray Gardner, and he blew up because he made a video about how when he used to be a bartender, how he would sort of be like a fly on the wall, and women would just like say stuff to each other. He would hear them talk. They would come up and basically confess things to him that they otherwise wouldn't. And his video just like, I think it's got like several million views by now, but it basically just like lets the cat out of the bag on what women are really thinking and how they really act. And this is just a fun conversation. You guys are really going to like this one. And I will bring that to you right after these words.
Hey, you, I'm going to make this real quick. I know you hate ads. If you like this show, if you love this podcast, if you think more men should tune in, then you should consider joining my Patreon. You will be supporting the show, and I get to help more men level up their lives. There's now 5 tiers available, starting as low as $5 a month. It's like buying me a beer, and each tier gives you better bonuses. Visit patreon.com/comeonmanpod to sign up. That's patreon.com/comeonmanpod. One last time, that's patreon.com/comeonmanpod. Help me help more men level up and be better with women.
All right, joining me this week is a TikTok creator who has some very compelling viewpoints on masculinity and sexual dynamics. You probably know him as Graybeard Actual. His real name is Ray. What's going on today, Ray?
Doing well, Paul. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it. I've been watching your videos for a while now. But one thing that really stands out to me is your name, your handle, Graybeard Actual. So adding actual at the end of your name sounds like you're a military man. Is that the case?
Marine Corps, yeah.
Marine Corps. Okay, very cool. What did you do in the Marines?
Air Wing, actually nothing too exciting. 88 to 92, corporal. Got out November of 92, so coming up on our anniversary.
Okay.
And there is actually, I should throw this out there, there's a Graybeard Actual on YouTube. He's been around a while. I didn't know this at the time. So you can find me by Graybeard Actual on YouTube, but if you come up on the tactical guy, from what I've seen, he's a pretty good dude. Didn't mean to step on his handle there, but I got some kind of a sub handle or something though. So
gotcha. Okay. So yeah, because if for people that aren't familiar with the term, so like commanding officers are referred to as their command plus actual at the end. So for instance, I was in the Navy. I was on the USS Shiloh. If someone wanted to speak to my captain from another ship via the radio, they would request to speak to Shiloh Actual. So yeah. So anytime you hear someone with actual in their name, you could almost guarantee that they were in the military some form.
What was your rate?
I was an OS. I got out as an OS2, so I was an E5 when I got out.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, spent a lot of time with the Navy bases.
Did you? Okay. Yeah. Sailors and Marines have an interesting dynamic. Are you one of those Marines that I have yet to meet one that isn't, but like when people say, ask me about my time in the military, I say I was a sailor, but Marines always say I am a Marine.
Yeah. Somebody, I forget what it was. I don't remember something came up in front of some other people, and another guy had said, well, when I was in the service, and they told us in boot camp, Parris Island, they said, I mean, they didn't tell us that you had to answer like this, of course, but they said, what you'll find is most Marines, they'll say, when I was in the Marines or when I was in the Corps or whatever. Mm-hmm. And there's exceptions, obviously, but other branches will tend to say when I was in the service or when I was in the military. But the Marines, it's kind of the same thing. And, there is a little bit of brainwashing going on there with the whole boot camp thing. But yeah, they kind of drill that into you. So once a Marine, always a Marine.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a pride thing, kind of a, and it's very unique to the Corps that I found. But yeah, no, I think it's actually kind of cool. It's kind of one of the best qualities of Marines, I think.
To be fair though, when somebody says ex-Marine or whatever, I got I'm going to burn calories and something else. I don't care about that. I don't say ex-Marine, but like I said, when somebody else will say it, and other civilian types will jump in and go, "Oh, you're not supposed to say that." Whatever.
Right? Yeah. Who cares? Do you think that someone who says I'm an ex-Marine, do you think that they're an actual former Marine, or do you think that they're just?
No, I've said it enough myself because you're speaking the civilian lingo. So if I'm talking to you, a crowd, whoever, I'm going to speak so you can understand me. And I think I typically say was a Marine or former Marine. That nobody likes somebody that just gets too wound up with the semantics and going to correct your grammar and shit like that.
Sure. What do you think of? Because I said someone who says that. Do you think they might be fake or whatever? Are you one of those guys?
No, I've only ran across that once or twice.
Okay.
I've never ran across an absolute fake Marine or fake military, whatever. The only thing I've ever ran into was some guys telling some big stories. In one of my first bartending jobs 30 years ago, I guess there was a guy there, and so I'm Desert Storm era, and I guess there was a guy there local at the bar, and he was always telling some big stories, and he was recon and so on and so on. And they said, "Hey, Ray, come here." And they introduced me, and he's in the middle of some big story, and his stories did tone down quite a bit. And he wasn't quite the war hero once another Marine was around. But yeah, you can tell, not necessarily by one or two words, but you were on a ship. Think about somebody trying to sell themselves off as some fantastic sailor. All you got to do is ask a few questions, and the lingo, the jargon, where did you deploy? How did this go? Are you a shellback? All these kinds of things, right? You can kind of suss through all that kind of stuff.
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely. Are you a shellback?
I never went on ship.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. I deployed a bunch, but it was always C-130s and C-5s and.
Got it. Okay. So are you one of those guys that sort of gets bent out of shape for the stolen valor thing? Because I don't see it so much anymore. I
heard the idea of it, but no.
Okay. I don't see it so much anymore, but I would say maybe 5 or 6 years ago, there was all these stories of stolen valor, and I would see all these older veterans just lose their mind over it. I'm like, who gives a shit? To me, it's pathetic,
Yeah.
I'm like, man, what a loser. That's all I think of,
I never encountered it. When I see the videos, the kind of videos you're talking about, that would kind of piss me off, but I don't know that I'm going to get so worked up in public. Maybe it would depend on what the guy was doing, right? I have a couple buddies that accosted a very young, barely 21-year-old kid. This is Southern California, 91, 92. And he had a dress blues jacket, the dress blues, the Marine dress blues, and had ribbons on it, E5, Sergeant Stripes, a couple hash marks, the whole bit. And he's out on the dance floor, and the kid's obviously not a Marine. And my buddies worked him over pretty good. And I wouldn't have done that. I don't know. I probably would have called him out, but I guess it was his older brother's jacket or something. I don't remember the story, but they didn't destroy the guy, but he felt that for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, he learned not to do it, I guess.
Yeah. This isn't a costume prop.
Yeah, for sure. So for people that aren't familiar with you, I first saw you on TikTok because of a video that blew up that you did about women's bar stories when you were a bartender. Was that your first breakout video?
That was my first big video on this account. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you had a previous account?
My fourth account.
Get out. Okay.
This is my first account where I started from scratch, doing my own content and just jumping in. My first account, other people around me were saying, you need to do this. Because the guy in the videos, that's me, right? I go to a local tavern once or twice a week and eat dinner, have a couple drinks. And there's a lot of people that wind up coming up to me and I help them and so on and so on. That's me. So short version is people, hey, you need to be on TikTok. I'm a very late arrival to social media in general. And so again, short version is I I started an account and I was clipping some Jordan Peterson videos, not exclusively, but that's kind of what I wound up doing. And that got banned. I had posted some Joe Rogan interview clips with Dr. Robert Malone and some of all that I wouldn't get into because I don't want to get banned again.
Are you talking about injection stuff?
Yes.
Yeah. The jab. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then my second one, I'm almost losing track now. The second one was I did a bunch of stuff with Rollo Tomasi, of course, you know. And again, I didn't start off doing that. I'm still playing around. And this is really what I'm getting at the point. I'm playing around because people are saying, do this. I'm clueless. I'm absolutely clueless on how this works. And so what I was doing was taking other people's stuff and like with Jordan Peterson or Tomasi, whoever, I know their content. So I was pretty good at editing it and grasping the point. And so those accounts, I mean, I had 300,000-400,000 views or likes, I mean, and I don't know, I think I got to like 20,000 followers on both of them and so on and so on. And the third one, I started off kind of like this, and I used a couple terms that I'm not going to say now because I know this isn't TikTok, but I'll skip it.
Yeah.
More kind of overtly political. And so getting back to the bartender story thing, I just got banned again, and I've got a glass of bourbon in my hand. I've got steaks on the grill. I set my phone up in the shop, and that's where I do most of my videos at, in the little woodworking shop. I put that thing up, and I would literally come up, and for whatever reason, I had this idea in my head. When I was in the Marine Corps at the time, the day I turned 21, I went to a bar that I'd already been hanging out at. It's called the Go Hill Tavern, Costa Mesa, California. Wonderful place. Check it out if you're in SoCal. Most of the bouncing staff at that time were all Marines, all juiced up, big jarhead guys. So I'm in there because of them already. So the day I turned 21, I go into the bar, put an application in. They recognize me. They see today's my 21st birthday, hire me on the spot. That's my bouncing job. Couple weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, doing that. I get behind the bar where the real money is. And more to the point of the content and the account and whatever's going on, I did pretty well with girls, you know, and that's not a flex because I failed a lot as well. And I've talked about this in a couple other podcasts.
Sure.
And I know Rollo talks about this a little bit sometimes, that guys that can have a little bit of game and have a little bit of success, they don't always know why, right? And that was definitely me. And so my reflections for that post were the things that stood out to me because I thought I knew what I was doing, right? I got girls, I can do this. And then now here I'm at the bar, and people really will treat you like a priest or a lawyer or something you're obviously not. I'm a 21-year-old kid. What do I know? And the way people were coming off, old people were asking me questions like I knew what I was talking about. Then to the point of the post, groups of women, not every group of women, of course, but groups of women would come in. And this wasn't a dive bar. This was a nice place. Anybody in Orange County or Southern California, they can attest to this. It's a nice, I mean, it's a fun place. There's sawdust and peanut shells on the floor, but it's an upscale kind of trendy place. It's not like there's a bunch of crazy weirdos in there, but you'd get these groups of women in their 30s, well, of all ages, but what stood out to me was the women in their 30s and 40s that were obviously intelligent, had some money, they had a little bit of status to them, right, as far as that goes. And 2 or 3 drinks in, man, Katie bar the door, they're telling you all the crazy shit. And they will absolutely people will absolutely talk to a bartender like they're a priest or something. And the stuff to the point is I thought I knew something, and I'm just sitting back listening going, really? Right? Yeah. And if you listen to that post talking about size, talking about ex-boyfriend, women that are getting ready to get married.
You can say things on here. It's okay. There's this is an adult show. Yeah.
I had a lot of this in the comments. I mean, that's almost 2 million views now. Yeah. I had a lot of comments, guys seriously asking, they're like, does size really matter? And I said, okay, fair enough. I've never heard one woman and there was other bartending days that I could talk about. I've never heard one woman say it was a deal breaker.
Yeah.
I just haven't. However, you get them talking And there's two dimensions here, right? The one that everybody talks about, that ain't it. That ain't it. All right. And if you listen to women talk about it, that's what matters. And there's a certain type of woman, if she's been around a little bit, if she's had a guy really knock her socks off, that's the only kind of guy she can fall for. I don't care how good you are. I don't care how nice you are. I don't care how good your physique is. If she's had her socks knocked off, you're alpha widow. You're never the one.
Yeah. That's
unless you can knock her socks off. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Unless you can compare to that alpha that stole her heart. Yeah. So just curious, what size is it that women say is like, or does it vary between like the,
they don't talk about numbers.
Okay.
They don't know numbers.
Yeah. They don't know how, they don't know if you're 6 foot tall. They don't know.
Well, when you would hear them talk about it, it was always, I'm trying not to be crude. I know we can say pretty much whatever. I don't want to be crude. Basically, I've asked a number of women, and okay, here's the thing, as a bartender, and I'd already started reading psychology books, and I was kind of like playing around with learning how to talk to people, and I could kind of talk them into a corner. And I've got a couple other posts where I had these little word games, and I could get women to admit that they're still pining for their ex and they don't really like their husband and all this kind of stuff. But if you ask them directly, they're never going to give you the truth. And that's probably most people, but fair enough. So I'd walk around a little bit of a story and go, what about this? What about that? And I could get most women to admit that, like, all right, you're building the perfect man. And if he's average length, but extra wide, or extra length and average width, and 100% without hesitation, extra width, boom, period. Right. So if that's not you as a man, all right, just probably be even more.
Work on your tongue game.
Well, you'd be more on guard of body count and all these other things, right? If she's, and again, I'll probably mention Rollo a number of times because I know you're doing your series on his latest book. Yeah. But Rollo gets into it. It's not a body count thing per se. The only thing body count does is up the probability that guy's been in there, right? But it could be 3 or 4 guys, and just so happens that number 2 or 3 was jacked in the Titanic. So good luck, right? Yeah. So, and I've made a few videos on that about being careful not to stack up behind a lot of first choices, and that's kind of become a theme of mine with the first choice. And I have a shirt made. I'm going to get some more done that just say hashtag first choice. You know, so if I can't be your first choice, I'll move along till I am somebody's first choice.
Yeah, that makes sense. I say walk through open doors a lot, but yeah, a lot of guys are sitting there trying to convince women to like them. It's like, dude, if she doesn't like you already,
yep,
you're. You might be able to sleep with her, but
that's the first choice dynamic. Yeah, because here's the kind of almost call it a trap, not a trap. Here's the thing that'll catch a lot of guys. If you get your game on, and by game I mean your physique, you're doing well with your money, you're spot on. And I've not done a post exactly on this because it's hard to define, but we have one more time here. A lot of things can't be replicated, okay? And so one of my California back way in the day stories is, it's on my YouTube channel. It's my first long form video I ever made. But I've been the security blanket. I've been with the alpha widow, and I was not going to change her mind. This isn't a flex, okay? But I've also been that guy. And the story I give on my YouTube is, I'm a 19-year-old Marine. I'm a little bit heavier. I was yoked up. We just lived in the gym. And I'm 19. She's 26. She's from Michigan. She's never been to California. She comes out with a friend of hers who was dating a Marine buddy of mine, so on and so on. And it was 2 solid weeks of party. We had sex on the beach in Mexico, down in Escondido. I got arrested in Tijuana, which horrified her because I got in a fight. But later on, that added to this edgy sense of adventure, right? And just the whole thing was this 2 weeks of a whirlwind blur. And to me, I'm just 19 having fun. And I thought, because she was older, I didn't think I was taking advantage of her. And there was a few weeks where she's calling me. She wants a long distance relationship. And no, can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And she calls me a year later to let me know that she found a fiance, a good man, not a guy like me, a good man.
Yeah.
And I thought, I kind of laughed it off, and I'm like, all right, whatever. But, at the point I'm thinking, well, why are you calling me for? Right. And that's alpha widow stuff. And to the point that you can't replicate some things. And so maybe to the guys out there, you may be totally 100% on your game, but if you come across a woman and you pick up that there's these experiences in her past, and it was just this whirlwind, he was some minor celebrity, it was spring break, whatever,
mm-hmm.
You can't replicate that. You may be more of a man than that guy, but that situation, she'll never be 26 again, first time in California, swept off her feet. She'll never do that again,
mm-hmm.
right? And so that's what I talk a lot about, is genuine desire and trying to learn how to pick up on cues that her most exciting days might be behind her, and she sees you as something besides her best, right? Her
mm-hmm.
first choice.
Yeah. I've had Rollo on the podcast. I've had a bunch of the Rule Zero guys on the podcast. I like to ask them what is their definition of genuine desire. So I'm going to ask you, what would you describe genuine desire as being?
Genuine desire. I never thought about it quite like that. Genuine desire is in my post, I always talk about, did she fall for you?
Mm-hmm.
And I've used the analogy, she's on a car lot and you're a nice car. You've got the low profile wheels or tires, you're hot, 500 horsepower, whatever, but you're not quite what she was looking for. Right. And so whatever it is that makes a woman fall for a man, it doesn't matter how nice you are. If you're not it, you're not it. So she gets on the car lot, and she really had her mindset on this model of car.
Mm-hmm.
The salesman tells her, well, that's not available.
Mm-hmm.
Right? She just can't get that. He's gone. That's Jack in the Titanic, whatever. That model's gone. But let me sell you on this model, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the salesman has to go to work convincing her this is the model she wants, and she buys it.
Yeah.
But then what happens a week, a month, a year down the road, she's driving down the road in her nice new car, and it's perfect. It's high horsepower, man, leather, bells and whistles, whatever. But every time she passes the model that she really wanted in traffic, she stops and thinks about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's a precise definition to genuine desire, but that is kind of the mindset of, what do you really want? And it is hard to define from one woman to another. Some women, it's going to come through. Am I the first choice? Were you infatuated with me from the beginning?
Mm-hmm.
Did you show that? Did you leave me on red? Were you ignoring my social media? Were you still following your ex-boyfriend 2 months later? All these different little things that could filter through. If any of that stuff's happening, I'm not your first choice. I'm not genuine desire for you.
Yeah.
I'm the guy. The salesman had to go to work to convince you to buy this car, meaning, did she fall for you? And this is my go-to on my post. Did she fall for you, or did you have to win her over?
Mm-hmm.
And I said it repeatedly on my account. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you have to win a girl over, bounce. You're out, man. Stop.
Yeah.
Right there.
It's not worth it.
Yep.
I've heard Rollo describe it as, if she's willing to change her religion for you, that's genuine desire right there. I'm like, never thought about it that way, but yeah, I can see that. So at the end of that first video, I wanted to ask you about this. That video that about the women's bar stories. You ended it by saying that threesomes aren't as fun as they might sound. Why
I got a lot more feedback on that than I thought. Wow, getting personal here. Hope my mom never sees this. I
won't tell her about it. Don't worry.
I don't think she watches your podcast. My first threesome was in the Philippines. Your Navy, do the math. But they came up and offered it. And I promise you, I don't think I've ever asked, I never thought that much about it. So maybe it's a personal, subjective thing. I don't know. Me and a girlfriend in high school, we never did it, but me and a girlfriend in high school had actually discussed it. Hey, let's do this. And we kind of like back and forth discussed it for about 4 or 5 days before we realized she was thinking I meant me and another guy and her. And I'm like, no.
No devil's triangle. No, definitely.
Yeah, that was fun. So yeah, that never happened. So the first one was Philippines. The girls offered up, and I was sitting. I don't know if you ever go to the Philippines, but if you went outside of Olongapo, there's this highway and it's the beach. It's kind of cool. And I'm literally just sunning myself on the steps. I wasn't even on the hunt. And these two girls, blah, 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 whatever. The next several times was always as a bartender. There's one other time after I was bartending, but the point I'm getting at is it was always as a bartender because you're in that position. And women, in my experience, there's always two women that were really good friends, I guess, which is necessary for this kind of thing. And it was just a thing for them. And I'm several times, and there was always older women, not dramatic. Remember, I was pretty young, but they'd pass a note, ever been with two women? And I'd say, yes. And then I was kind of let them down a little bit, but whatever. But
they thought they were making your night. Yeah.
Yeah. Like this kid could barely grow a beard at this point. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know, maybe because it never really fascinated me before, because I got a lot of feedback agreeing with me and disagreeing on that post. But, and I'm being perfectly honest, this isn't a nod to women or whatever, but I just want to focus on one. I mean, I don't,
it's distracting, right? Like,
yeah, it's like I'm over here like doing a circus trick or something. And I'm glad I had those experiences. I'll be perfectly honest. It was a learning experience, obviously, but really, and now this might even, I don't know how many women watch your podcast, but I think women
not very many. I got, it's mostly 99% dudes that watch this.
Yeah.
So,
but if you're going to be, I'll just say it plainly, if you're going to be good at sex, and I mentioned earlier about size and some different things, what women, in my experience, what women are going to appreciate the most is intensity. If you absolutely want, I don't mean just being thirsty, horny like a 14-year-old kid, but if you absolutely want to take this woman, different positions, it's rough, it's impetuous, it's just go, right? And take your time. And I say all that, don't rush through it. But if you just really put intensity to that and you focus on her, quick side note, I've used this before for a couple different examples. Women get into romance novels, okay? Men obviously watch body parts slapping together. What's the difference? We just want to see the body parts slapping together. One body part's interchangeable with the other. With the romance novels, at least the ones that I've perused, they're pornographic. They're absolutely pornographic, right? They get very, very detailed. I was very surprised to find out how detailed they were. To the point, though, is that there's character development. It matters what the guy does. It matters what his status is. It matters the background. All the story develops around it. What's that mean? When a man hooks up, he just wants to get laid. When a woman, even in a hookup, she needs to feel that she is the absolute center of his focus, his attention. And of course, that's not what hookup is. Like we said, from our standpoint, one body part's interchangeable with the other one. But from her standpoint, she needs to feel like she's it. You could have had any woman you wanted, but she is absolutely it. And when you approach it like that and you're intense and you whatever your style, whatever your method is, women do like to hear some voice. I know we don't always do that, but they love to hear that. And you just be animalistic, intense, and go after it. Man, that makes a huge difference, right? And so all that to get back to the original thing of threesomes, you can't hardly do that in a threesome, right? It's more of a circus act, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a fetish with some people. Maybe it makes them feel I don't know, making up for girlfriends they didn't get in high school or something, whatever. But
Yeah.
the most intense pleasure that I think you can give a woman is you and her being that animalistic intensity and just make her feel like she's the center of the universe.
Yeah. I had Eric Everhart on the podcast earlier this year. He wrote a book called Unleash Your Sexual Superpowers, and we talked about threesomes. And he said that for them to be successful, your girl has to be into chicks for one, and then two, there's a hierarchy. And he's like, your girl has to be like the center, and it's basically you and this other chick tag teaming to make her, feel special. And that's the only way it works. And if you do it any other way, it's just, chicks get jealous. Like there's all sorts of problems with it. It's like, he's like, this is the only way it works.
I hadn't thought about that. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I mentioned that every one of them I've been in was always two women asking me,
mm-hmm.
and they were really good friends. But you're right. Each time one of the women was the focal point. It's like one of the girls was doing this for the other one.
Mm-hmm.
And we all interplayed and did our thing. It was one of the women that was more the focal point. The one, second, third, I'm thinking. The first one that at the Goat Hill Tavern, I was talking about before, the one girl was on her period, which was weird. Obviously, the very limited activity there.
Yeah.
But that one girl was doing this for her,
mm-hmm.
and everything was focused on her. And I think from the attitude that I got, and I hadn't really thought about that. That's a good point. The way the one sort of served the other. Yeah. I forget the guy's name you just said, but yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Eric Everhart. Yeah. He's a good guy.
Eric Everhart. Yeah. She was serving her needs. So both me and those second girl, we'll call her, were serving the first girl's needs. Sure. Good point. Yeah.
That makes sense. You have a number of videos talking about how men shouldn't be vulnerable. And I 100% agree with you on like all that stuff. So, but can you sort of give can you explain that? Cause so my podcast, it started out of a group of men that studied Corey Wayne's book, How to Be a 3% Man. I don't know if you're familiar with Corey Wayne, but in his book near the end, he says something about how vulnerability is strength and or whatever. And I'm like, I've always disagreed with that. And I've gotten into some arguments with some of my 3% brothers on that, but it's absolutely not strength. It's like the complete opposite of that. And women respond to strength, but we're always told to be vulnerable.
You probably understand that wrong instinctively because you're in the military,
mm-hmm.
right? And a lot of the guys that I come across on social media now, I try not to cross swords just to cross swords. I don't think that's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people, male and female, have just bought into a lot of the modern narrative, right? It's said, and they're not really thinking about what's being said.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've made a number of videos saying, no, vulnerability is synonymous with weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And the most common argument I get back on that is, well, first responders, soldiers, whatever, people going to battle, they're vulnerable. No, they're not. That's not vulnerability. Vulnerability is being open to harm. And so I've made a couple of videos on this. A soldier, Marine, sailor, whoever, we go into battle, right? I'm well armed. I'm well trained. I've got my magazines on me. I'm good. I'm good, right? I'm not vulnerable. I'm in harm's way, but I'm not vulnerable unless I drop my weapon. I had poor training, whatever that is. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's vulnerability. I read a lot of old Civil War stuff. You'd have these companies and divisions of men lined up, thousands of men, and it's hard to organize all that, right? This could go on for 100 acres, and the better generals would see, oh, my flank is open. It's not obvious. If your flank is open, what is that? And they would use the word. That's vulnerable. You're vulnerable to, would that be a defilade attack? That'd be a defilade attack, right? You're vulnerable. You work to fix that deflated attack. You work to fix that vulnerability. You don't leave it hanging out in the air like that. You're going to get killed. So of course I get some people coming back, well, romance isn't combat. Well, I'm just responding to the most common argument I get, right? So, which is the bottom line is vulnerability is being open to harm, open to injury. That doesn't mean you purposely hang yourself out there to be injured. It just means vulnerability, that is, it's a weakness that I'm easily offended, I'm easily insulted, I'm easily hurt. None of that comports to what being a man is. None of that has anything whatsoever to do with masculinity, right? And so the more I get into this badass coaching guy on TikTok and 2 or 3 others, and they have millions of followers, and they've come after me a couple of times, and I'm like, hey, you have no fucking argument, because everything they bring to me is nothing but they describe emotional intimacy. And I say, you tell me one.
Go ahead.
I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
You tell me one fucking item, one place that emotional intimacy, me, a man with a wife or a girlfriend, you tell me how me being emotionally intimate with my wife or family, my kids, it works. You tell me what that has to do with me being easily hurt. It doesn't, has nothing to do whatsoever. Zero, zip, nothing, right? If I'm emotionally intimate, because what they do is they describe, I'll say a man does not have to be vulnerable to be in touch with his wife or his girlfriend or his family. And what they wind up describing is intimacy, or how are you going to be intimate? How are you going to do this? How are you going to be emotionally in touch? No, it's a straw man argument. You are describing emotional intimacy, the masculine version of emotional openness. You're describing that and saying, well, that's being vulnerable. The hell it is. That's completely wrong. It's 100% wrong. So it's a straw man argument. They say for a man, in order for him to be intimate, in order for him to be emotionally available to his wife or girlfriend, he has to be weak, vulnerable. And that's just absolute lie. And I've torn this apart 9 ways from Sunday, and I've lost some followers for it, but I gained some too. So there you go.
You didn't need those followers anyway. You also stitched a video of Elise Michaels about how you did 2 of them. Well, the one that I saw was how men can stop feeling emasculated. She did it on how men can stop feeling emasculated. You said, well, the first step is stop getting advice from women about how to be a man. I love that. Yeah. Because there's these women, and some of these, I think some of these female content creators, they have good intentions, and some of them have a decent message, but these guys just flock to them, and it's easy for them to build a following because men are, these simps are just like, oh, she gets me, she understands me, and it's all a grift at the end of the day.
I think there's a subconscious thing in their mind. Elise Michaels is nice looking. And she's pretty squared away. I mean, I've stitched her twice now, and I'll defend her to a certain extent. I mentioned earlier about people. I don't cross swords with everybody that talks about vulnerability.
Yeah.
I really, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say this with too much certainty. I think I could not necessarily change her mind. I think I could influence her a little bit. Just watching some of her content, I don't think she's over the top.
Yeah, and I don't have a specific problem with Elise, and I don't really know her. I haven't really talked to her, but and I don't have a problem with I don't have a problem with all the female creators out there, but there's a few that I do have some beefs with. So
yeah. Elise and I have a couple of mutual TikTok friends, and from the content that I see and the things they say, I think she probably falls in the camp of somebody that has bought the narrative, vulnerability. Basically, what I kind of maybe gone off a little bit of a rant there before is vulnerability in a man equals intimacy. And that's false. That's a totally false idea. But I think she's bought into that. And I've talked to a number of men. Brian Morgan, he'll probably watch this on TikTok. He and I kind of went back and forth a little bit, and he's like, oh yeah, I see your point. Great. But I think Elise is probably pretty, you know what, the right guy, and she may hate me saying it like this, But if she met the right guy, he could probably bring her over to the traditional masculinity side with no vulnerability and all that other stuff. Because I'm just, like I said, I'm just giving her a little bit of defense because her stuff is not totally over the top, but what she does put out there is very much narrative driven from society, all that. And I'm too far off from that, but to the point, to what you were saying on the original post though, was that, yeah, don't take advice from women. Duh. Mm-hmm. And the second part, I don't remember exactly what, she got into the vulnerability part, was what we've already been talking about. So any woman's going to tell you, well, okay, imagine that. My bald head, bearded, muscled up, whatever, what woman of any sense is going to take advice from me on how to be feminine? I can tell you what I like about the feminine. I can tell you what I look for in the feminine, but the idea that I'm going to be able to coach somebody up, a woman up, on how to be precisely detailed feminine, that's goofy. That's just, there's no sense in that. And the men, and in my opinion, the men that buy into this, and I love Pearl, okay? She's the only one I can think of that I'm really into. Well, I don't even follow her, but that I like her.
I see her clips. I don't follow like her long form content, but I see her clips and she makes really good points, Yeah.
Oh yeah. I've not watched every long form either. But I'm just trying to give credit where credit is due. Men don't listen to women. I know I'm a Neanderthal. I'm a caveman, but I mean, really, right? Just turn the tables around. Are there a bunch of 20-year-old women out there trying to learn how to be feminine by listening to a guy like me? And I've got like 12, 13, 14% of my followers are women. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that. But if that number grew much higher, I would be worried. Okay, I tell you this. When I first started, for like the first 2 or 3 months, my female follower on TikTok, the percentage was close to 20%. And I sincerely thought, I'm doing something wrong. Mm-hmm. There should be 20% of women liking my stuff. And I'm not trying to be offensive. Yeah. At the same time, it's like, that's not who I'm appealing to. But back to the original point, though, it's like, who am I, this crusty old jarhead, to be giving a 20-something-year-old girl tips on the details of how to be feminine? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I have a few. I don't think most women listen to the long form content, the long form podcast, but I do have probably roughly that amount on social media. And what I found with them is that they either want to understand men better or they just want to argue with me. Like that's those are my female followers, which I still appreciate them. They still give me views. A view's a view at the end of the day. But so based purely on your videos and your topics, I'm going to go out on a limb, say you've probably read some of the same books, follow the same creators. You mentioned Rollo already. You mentioned Jordan Peterson. Besides those guys, who would you say are your biggest influences then in the men's space?
Excuse me. I've been asked this quite a bit just from commenters on books and stuff, and for recommendations. It's hard to narrow down because I'm a reader. I mean, I've read thousands of books, and that's just me. So I'll start off with Rollo for sure. Yeah, we'll go with Rollo. So I've been divorced just a little over 2 years, right? And most people, if you're a well-read person, or at least a moderately well-read person, you have some opinions, depending on age. When you find somebody, whatever the source, social media, books, whatever, when you find somebody that echoes a little bit of what you feel like you've already figured out, right? You'll go, boom, got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so I got divorced in July of 2020, and it was probably about this time of year, 2020, a few months later. I had seen Rollo's books on audible.com, on the audio thing. I do 2-3 books a month on Audible.
I love audio. I listen to all my books because taking the time to sit down and read is just such a chore for me. But if I'm going to the gym, if I'm in the car, if I'm out jogging, audiobooks is just effortless learning for me. So,
and I still do love to read, and I try to encourage people to actually read because there's a mental process to that. But yeah, to that point, I sit at a desk with multiple monitors and all that, but I can put my earbuds in and go. So I'd seen Rollo, because all the psychology stuff that I like to read, I'd seen Rollo's books before, but Rollo's the GOAT, okay? But I could tell by looking at the listing, it was a kind of a self-published or, not a big thing. So I thought, whatever. And short version is I finally clicked on one shortly after my divorce, and I thought, oh yeah, that guy's really good. And I looked him up on YouTube, and obviously, Rollo, great stuff. What Rollo doesn't get credit for, I think, in mainstream or nearly mainstream, whatever, is he's sharp. He's really sharp. I know some people kind of criticize a little bit for being so data heavy, but man, you need the data. You got to get it somewhere, right? And I don't know anybody else that really breaks down data in real life examples and really breaks it down the way Rollo does. The only difference I think between Rollo and myself as far as outlook goes is, I'm sitting here having a drink and, dropping bombs, but I have a little bit more of a spiritual background. I might differ with him a little bit on the religion thing, but not by much. Right. So if I've made a couple book lists on my posts. So I would say, if a person starts with the Rollo, we'll read the whole series. I've read all but one, the one on religion. I'm going to get to it. From there, the influences as far as these things go, Jack Donovan, The Way of Men, excellent book. Now here's the funny thing. I put out a book list maybe a month and a half ago, and I'd only listened to The Way of Men once. And when I started putting my book recommendation list together, I put as number 2 a book called Shop Class as Soulcraft. Shop Class as Soulcraft. Has nothing to do with Red Pill, has nothing to do with anything, right? Shop Class as Soulcraft. And I listened about a week later after I put that post out, I was re-listening to The Way of Men. I think it's The Way of Men. Has to be, yeah. And he mentions Matthew B. Crawford, Shop Class as Soulcraft. Because what Shop Class as Soulcraft gets into, right, it's the loss of skill and competency. And he's taking a totally different route. He's not Red Pill. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But when he talks about the loss of competency and people in general, but specifically men, losing the ability, losing the skill to take care of themselves, to be somewhat independent because of the skills they possess. So we take you away from being an artisan, a skilled laborer, a craftsman, okay? We take that away from you. Now we put you in a factory. What's that make you? Makes you a fucking robot is what makes you, right?
Yeah.
Now you can attach all that to stuff. You see where I'm going with that. You can attach all that to what are people today? We're slaves, right? We're tied to this thing, and I'm not trying to go off on a rabbit hole there.
No, it's a great point though. Yeah.
Yeah. So my book list, I said, number 1, Jack Donovan. Number 2, Matthew B. Crawford, Shop Class as Soulcraft. Went on the line. My last book was Rollo Tomasi, his first book, Rational Male. And then I listened to that Jack Donovan a little later, and sure enough, he mentions Matthew B. Crawford, Shop Class as Soulcraft, because on my posts, if you listen to these, read them in that order, they give understanding to the next thing. And then the very last thing with Rollo Tomasi, I said, if you read these other books in progression, build on that understanding, you'll get to Rollo Tomasi's initial book, Rational Male, and go, there you go.
Interesting. Okay. I'm gonna have to go check out your book list then. My book list is ridiculously long. And I have a calendar reminder just so I can keep track of all the books that I put on my list. And so I go through them in order. There's a few books that I listen to on repeat. So, like that Corey Wayne book, I've listened to it 21 times. Rollo's book is one that I've got on my list to listen to multiple times, So I go through these, and then
occasionally I'll hear like a book recommendation like that, and so it'll jump the line. It pushes everything back. So, but so it takes me forever to get to people's books. But yeah, I love it. I man, one of the blessings. So me getting into this space, I've told the story on the podcast a bunch of times. I was married and got divorced, found myself back on the dating circuit, and then got into a long-term relationship for like 4 years. It was that second relationship that caused me to go into the red pill space and look for answers on, why I suck with women, why I can't keep long-term relationships, long going, why I can't keep them going and stuff like, what the fuck am I doing wrong? And so, yeah, but that second relationship, she got me into audiobooks. She was really big into like self-help books and listening to audiobooks. And so I started listening to them, and I was like, you know what? I bet you I could find some books on how to be better with women. Sure enough. So I always give her credit for my journey and my ridiculously long book list. You have a great video about how men and women lie differently in relationships. So you said that men have a criminal mindset while women will justify their actions. Can you expand on that a little bit? I thought that was great.
That is, to my mind, that is my masterpiece in passive aggressive messaging. Because when both men and women lie, I mean, we're not going to be stupid here. Obviously, men and women both lie.
Oh, sure.
When men lie, and there's exceptions, I get it. I get it. Right this second on November 7th, and there's one pin that I changed on my TikTok a lot. But I have a favorite TikTok that I made where I basically told people to shut the fuck up if you're going to give me exception to the rule. And everybody loves it and they laugh, whatever. So that's it right now. So don't give me your exception. So here's the thing. Men are criminals when they're doing something wrong. We do not need to justify our emotions as we do what we're doing. Are all men liars? No. Are all women liars? Of course not. No. But men or women, whatever that class is, when they're doing something wrong, when we're up to no good, the men absolutely know they're doing something wrong. And you can go to Psychology Today, whatever, you can find plenty of articles on this. Men get caught more than women. Why? Because we don't justify this stuff. Okay. We know, we might tell ourselves, I'm the top G, I'm a whatever. Yeah, dude, whatever. You're stepping out and you are, right? Women, and there's a lot of, evolutionary psychology kind of stuff on this and how they protect and how they, bundle up. But basically speaking, when a woman is going to, it could be flirting and maybe not even full cheating. When a woman is misbehaving, and I know that's an old fashioned term, I'm trying to be generic here, whether it's overt flirtation, whether it's a crush at work, whether it's actual cheating, right? And Esther Perel, this is my thing about being passive aggressive, is I've actually pulled up some Esther Perel clips where she basically says the same thing. The woman has to go through so many emotional hurdles to justify her actions, to feel good and justified about her actions, right? She's believing her own shit. Mm-hmm. And so my point in those posts is, there's one big one, but there's 2 or 3 of them, is the hard part for men is Madonna whore complex, how you want to think of it. When a woman looks at me and goes, oh, baby, it's love and loyalty forever. Flash the eyelashes, right? Mm-hmm. We believe it. We just fucking believe it. We just do, right? Mm-hmm. And then literally, I've seen this in my own life, literally an hour or 2 later, she's giving fuck me eyes to some perfect stranger. Mm-hmm. Really? How'd you do that? How did you go from being very sincere, or at least a very good liar, with all the love and loyalty stuff, to doing that with that guy, mm-hmm. right? And they are 2 different people. We can flirt and we can do all the same kind of stuff, but we're not as convincing as we do it. Why? Because we're not convincing ourselves of it, right? So when a woman gets into that mode, she literally needs to feel as if she's justified in doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so as she gets into doing this, she will tell herself she deserves this. She will tell herself, he's doing this, he's doing that, I'm not getting what I need, et cetera, et cetera. I deserve this. You go, girl. You get what you need. If you're not getting affection, if you're not getting the satisfaction, if you're not getting this, you go for what you need. You deserve this. And they'll go and do it, and they're fine.
Yeah.
And that to the male psyche, we don't deal well with that because we don't typically operate like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. It's like there's a term, women don't lie. It's like women don't lie and men don't listen. That's what the term is. But yeah, like women don't think that they're lying because they've done the mental gymnastics for it.
The passive aggressive part is that they effectively turn themselves into pathological liars.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what that is. Once you buy your own bullshit, your own justifications, you are a pathological liar. If even for the moment.
Yeah. I see women, I see it a lot in the comments, and you probably do too. Like women, when you make an assertion about like how women are, and then women are like, oh yeah, well, that, you know, she probably only did that because of blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like they make all these excuses. It works both ways and all this stuff. You know, it's like, you're not sticking on topic here. Now you're trying to convince me of your bullshit, you know?
I probably had in the last 2 weeks, because I've kind of stepped up, I guess you call it being aggressive. There's probably 8 or 9 female followers of mine. And I have, I mentioned before, about 11, 12%. And they're pretty down to earth women and, you know, whatever. But there's been 8 or 9 women in the last couple of weeks that I put out some posts. And before they were totally supportive, but I'll touch a trigger, right? Mm-hmm. And they're like, and they come at me hard. I'm just blocking them.
Yeah.
Just like, no, we're not going to do this because, like you said, and they're following you and they're arguing with to this extent. If you're going to show me this attitude, this belief system, whatever, you know, topic it is, I only block. Kind of a side note, I only block when I see somebody as a liability. Like I said, this is my 4th account. If I think you're going to report me at some point, you're getting blocked.
Yeah.
And I have plenty of debates with people all the time. And because they're not hateful or stupid or whatever, I'll let them be. The only time I block was when I sincerely think somebody's going to be a liability to me. And, you know, to what you said, though, is like some women get to a point and they just can't wrap their head around some basic factual stuff. And they get, you know, kind of weirdly offended. So I'm like, gone, done.
Yeah. I do the same thing. My original account got banned last year for mass reporting and bogus violations. So it's been well over a year. I still haven't made it back to that same level. Like TikTok, if I get a video that's getting up to like, let's say 40,000 views or something like that, they'll cut it off and they're like, we can't let this guy get out there. I've never had a video go like 1 million views or 2 million views. Never.
Well, okay. So we're coming up to an hour here. I don't know how long you go, but I'll give people this.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely not a TikTok expert or an algorithm expert or anything like that. 4th account. And I know it's kind of become a running joke that if your posts aren't doing well, people kind of make memes like maybe your content sucks.
Right.
No, hold up. I've went several times. I've went from having an average of 15 to 20,000 views per video. That's an average.
Yeah. And
then overnight go down to literally less than 100. You're getting stepped on.
Oh yeah. I took a month and a half off because I had an account warning and I wanted to, you know, put space between violations. And I came back last week and started dumping all my videos that I've been posting this whole time on Instagram. And all those videos almost all of them are like under 100 views. And I'm like, there's no way that I have 20,000 followers and I'm only getting like 10 views. And
so I get it. It's easy to say, well, maybe your content's like, I don't know. I went from 20,000 to 80. That doesn't make sense. And even just now for the last 2 weeks, my average was up around 10 or 12. And now my average is around 2, 3, 4, something like that. And I have a couple that are 50, 60 plus, but it's every fifth or sixth one. So there's something there. And I'll say this though, actually in TikTok's defense, not that they're listening, but for anybody who wants to learn a little bit, is avoid keywords. And this isn't TikTok necessarily. So don't say the word suicide. Body count will get you flagged, but not banned. It can slow your momentum up a little bit. I did a live like a month and a half ago with Elizabeth Princeton. She tried to promote our live and she used nothing but pro-masculine stuff. Masculinity, manly, whatever, right? 6 or 7 hashtags was nothing but masculinity. It got taken down. Right? So kind of be selective in what you're saying. If you watch, there's 2 or 3 posts I've had in the last week where the topic was body count. And it can get through, but you'll see me cut that word off. I go, I'll cut it off.
Yeah.
Right?
I've been editing. I've been bleeping out my words a lot. And I think I'm going to, I noticed my friend Defund Simping, he's got like almost 500,000 followers. He just doesn't even use like description half the time. He just posts the video without anything. And because they do that, they have that algorithm where they're looking for keywords in the description. And so he just stopped posting those, and he seems to be doing good. So I think I might start doing that.
Yeah. I would say don't ever post anything overtly pro-masculine, pro-red pill, nothing obvious, right? Just, and it's kind of odd. It's crazy that we're sitting here having this conversation. This is like Soviet style stuff, right?
Yeah.
Even on an open forum, as you know, YouTube and podcasts are, we're talking about how to get around the system.
I know it's crazy. We're in the United States. It blows my mind. Absolutely blows my mind. You're right. We are we're actually over an hour now. So why don't we end on that thought, the Soviet Union. Where can people find you online, Ray?
If you go to my TikTok account, Graybeard Actual, can't find me, find it through him. I have a link tree there. Graybeard Actual on Instagram, Graybeard Actual on YouTube. And those are my things. Yeah.
I just saw that you have a Twitter account too, but you don't have, it's not.
I don't post anything. I know shit about Twitter.
Dude, Twitter's hard for me to figure out, but yeah.
There's a female lawyer friend of mine on TikTok that is very intelligent, and she's had some really good info. And she said, get on Twitter. And I said, I don't see the point. There's nothing to this. But yeah, I'm there, but I have posted.
One good thing about Twitter though is Elon Musk took over, and we have some freedom of speech. Well, more free than the other platforms, and I really dig it. And all the Manosphere guys, Rollo, all those guys are super active on Twitter. So if you ever want to get in contact with Rollo, do it through Twitter. Yeah, for sure. All right, Ray, I'll give you your evening back, man. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, brother.
Ray, thank you for joining me, brother. I really appreciate it. You're welcome back anytime. You're a good dude, man. I really like that you took the time to join me, and we were able to talk about, you know, being in the military, and you know how talk about, you know, vulnerability around women, and how it's such bullshit. Yeah, man, great conversation. I really appreciate it. Like I said, you're welcome back anytime, man. All right, guys, before we go, I want to give another quick shout out to the Patreon, patreon.com/comeonmanpod. You guys joining the Patreon supports the show more than anything else. I have some, you know, advertising sponsors on like YouTube and Spotify and stuff like that, but it's like pennies compared to just the simple, like if you guys just join the lower tier, the beer club tier, your $10 a month really helps keep these videos coming, helps keep getting more guests on so that we can help more men. So please consider joining, even if it's just the the $10 option. One thing I do want to say too, anyway, before I move on to that, patreon.com/comeonmanpod, check it out. Links in the description. January, it's only going to be 3 tiers. So check it out now if you want to lock in the current prices. Another way that you can support the show that I didn't really talk about at the beginning is starting in January, I'm going to start doing live streams. I'm going to start trying to do it twice a week on like Wednesday and Friday mornings. And that's another way you can support the show. If you tune in on YouTube, what I'm typically going to be doing is, covering a topic. I'll have talking points, and I'll just cover those points until I'm done. But if you send a super chat, you can ask questions, and that's another way that you can support the show is with super chats. So if you don't want to do the Patreon, that's cool too. If you just want to do like a one-time thing, just join one of the live streams and send a super chat. That will help quite a bit as well. Otherwise, you can just, tune in coming in January to the live stream and join the chat and listen to me ramble on about some kind of topic for an hour. I'll try to keep it, concise and to the point though. So it's not rambling. It'll be actually helpful information. That's the plan anyway. Or sometimes I'll talk about a current topic, but yeah, if you want to, if I'm ever talking about something and you just want to interject with something that you're going through or whatever, just send a super chat. And it can even be like, a 99-cent super chat. It doesn't matter. There's not going to be any price limit on it, but I am going to limit answering questions to super chats. So keep that in mind. Make sure you guys get on the email list.comeonmanpod.com and get free stickers for your troubles. I just want to be able to contact you guys if I ever get deplatformed, from YouTube or, Instagram or whatever. I just want to be able to reach out and let people know that I did get deplatformed and where to follow me, if I create a new account or something like that. So get on the email list. I promise I'm not using it for spam. So my guest next week is going to be Red Pill Thor. He's very well known in the manosphere, but you might not have heard of him. He doesn't have a huge following on YouTube, but the man literally knows everyone in the space. Like I think he has everyone's personal numbers. He makes training content for John MLD, and like everyone knows him. And he's a good, solid dude. He hosts a panel show every week called The Dragon Ship. So that conversation is really good. You're not going to want to miss it. All right. I think that's all we have for this week, guys. Make sure you tune in on Monday.
This has been the Come On Man podcast. New full episodes served hot every Monday morning on your favorite podcast platform of choice. So subscribe now. Follow Paul on social media. The links are in the description. Now, go out and get it.